Yeah, I mean, anything that's close to body, I always say you cannot decouple design from fit. They go
Mm.
hand in hand. And, to Larissa's point, you can make a great, beautiful product. It's going to end up in the back of your drawer. You're never going to pull it out because your association with that product is discomfort. We won't take a project on unless it is aligned with our values of making product that improve people's lives. So we work across like Optitex, Browseware, Clo, the big three, and plus a bunch of other programs. We do a lot of body scanning. So we have over like 10,000 body scans in our database. And then we have handheld body scans that we can, scan our fit models or, scan whoever. And what that allows us to do is really create custom avatars based on body scans by taking it through a couple of different softwares. Again, it goes back to size and fit. And so many brands, they'll start off with a size and fit project, and then it kind of gets lost in the sauce, or it gets, a stopping point, and then design continues. And that fit that was so closely connected to the original size and fit, right, now starts to get watered down. 3D is great. It's awesome. I don't think it's ever going to replace the art that goes behind it, or that knowledge base that you really need to understand, fit and pattern making. So I think I love it. It's a tool in our, toolbox, but it's never going to replace, our expert pattern makers, who use the tool. It's not going to replace their knowledge base. And then, we don't fit just in one bra size. So we fit in multiple sizes across the bra size range. And then that just adds up. And just seeing that waste, I think is probably compelled a lot of people that have, seen that and care about sustainability to incorporate 3D in the processes. I built the company over 5 years ago now with a remote team. And that was always the intent, that people should be able to use the planet like their playground, live where they want to live, and investing in technology and software was a way to do it.
Hello, welcome to Underdressed, the podcast where we talk about the clothes under our clothes and exactly how they get made. My name is Trudy Gardner. I'm the freelance designer behind Wayfinder Lingerie. In this show, I'll be exploring the art, practice, and technical execution of intimate apparel. We'll be taking a behind-the-scenes look at this industry and trying to understand exactly how designers balance creativity with functionality, specifically as it pertains to our hardworking yet delicate base layers. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the show. Hello, welcome back. And if you are new here, welcome. This week on the podcast, I have Stephanie from The Squad, who I was very excited to have a conversation with. She was introduced to me by Larissa King, who I had on the podcast just a few episodes ago. And Larissa King was talking about a little bit of freelance work she was doing in Clo 3D for a company called The Squad. And I was very keen to learn a little bit more about the type of work she was doing. And so I asked her to put me in touch with somebody from The Squad, and she got me in touch with Stephanie. And in the introduction, Larissa introduced me and Underdressed as a show that explores the intersection of intimate apparel and technology, which I loved as a description. Even though that was never my original intent with the show, I think I've come to a place where design and the way that I think about design is inseparable from creating a virtual representation of that design. And I talked about it with Larissa and a few other guests. When we're designing, when we're drafting by hand on paper, when we're learning how to create a design, you go from a concept to a 2D pattern to a 3D design. And so it's just now I will always approach my questions about design through a virtual lens, because I think it gives us access to being able to create designs that are better thought out, with less waste and with more efficiency. And so you can imagine I was super excited to be talking to Stephanie from The Squad, who has built a whole company around designing garments and creating virtual representations of garments through various software, starting with body scans and data points from real people. And we get into all of that in the podcast. So it was very exciting. I really enjoyed having this conversation. And I also really appreciated Stephanie's approach to the foundation of her company. For me, it really bled through how much Stephanie cares about the company that she's building, the employees that are working for her, the clients that she works with, and the products that she's creating. So thank you to Larissa for the introduction, and thank you to Stephanie for the beautiful conversation. I will let you go and enjoy the episode now, and I'll catch you next time. All right, good to go?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, hello everybody and welcome to the podcast. This week I am talking to Stephanie, who is the CEO of her own company called The Squad. And we're
Mhm.
going to get into exactly everything you do because I've been poking around your Instagram and your website and I'm super interested in it all, but I know a lot of it is sort of proprietary information. So I look forward to
Mhm.
hearing what you can tell us today. So welcome,
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And the way that I connected with you was because we had Larissa King on the podcast a few weeks
Yes.
ago, and she started telling me about a little bit of the work she does for you, but then couldn't go
Mhm.
into all the details. So I'm like, I got to meet you. So this is exciting.
Yeah, Larissa's great. Larissa and I go way back, and so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
been awesome to have her on the team and helping out with some of our projects.
Yeah. Okay. How about I let you introduce what the squad is, what the squad is to our audience?
Yeah, so the Squad is an innovation and development agency, and we work across apparel, medical, and wearable tech categories. We go super deep in virtual technology, and we're always investing in new emerging technologies. And the way that we incorporate that is proprietary in some of our processes, and it allows us to be more sustainable in the development of products. So we can work virtually before getting into physical product creation. We do rapid prototyping in our sample room, and we have a domestic and international vendor base, manufacturing base, and which we'll take products to once we develop them to a good point. So the squad actually is was named after my love of comic books, and also I'm a certified PMP project manager, and Agile is kind of our jam is when we approach any projects. And this squad actually comes from Agile methodology and how teams are set up. So it's a dual purpose.
Okay. What was your favorite comic book?
I mean, you got to go with the X-Men. That's just like
Yeah.
through and through.
Yeah, yeah. Wolverine. That was my brother's favorite.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I liked there was a time it was a series called Onslaught, and that whole series was super great within the X-Men, comic book space, and they intertwined like Gambit and Rogue and Wolverine, and like they all have like this love triangle,
Nice.
and then
Yeah,
plus
great
the
characters.
yeah, the addition of the Onslaught is pretty cool.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, I
Yeah.
wrote down PMP. What is PMP?
It's a certification for project managers.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's a pretty intense course. And the test you find out really quick if you pass or failed. And it's pretty intense. I think it's like a 4 hour test or something like that. And you had under 30 seconds to answer each question. And
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty intense. And you have to get recertified every couple years.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Who
So I'm a
provides that
certified.
certification?
Oh, you have to either go to college for it or there's
Okay.
courses.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, cool. I've never
Hmm.
heard of that before. So it's like a professional designation. Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody says they're PMP certified, it's kind of
Okay.
taken to the next level of like, oh wow, they're,
You know what you're doing.
serious.
You know how to run a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that plays into you running your own business. So I
Hmm.
think I might have more questions about that as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about your background? So PMP certified, but also you
Mhm.
have a background in design as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of fell into design really. I was supposed to be an oceanographer, and I I was drawing comic books one day in high school,
Oh,
and yeah, and somebody walked by and said, "You should be a fashion designer," and I'm like,
nice.
okay. And when I say I was supposed to be an oceanographer, I went to like all the conferences. I did a summer at like Florida State. Like I was in it, you know, and it wasn't just like, oh, I might do this. It was, I'm going to do this. And so I gave my parents a heart attack. I did a complete 180 and I applied to FIT and
Nice.
in New York. And I think my sophomore to junior year, I was introduced to an internship at Victoria's Secret, and they hired me full time at the end of my junior year. So my whole senior year, I was going to school full time. I was working full time at Victoria's Secret, and I had a restaurant job on the weekend. So,
Of
like
course, yeah.
when you have the energy, right?
Yeah. No, I love it. Your story is not unfamiliar to my own,
Yeah.
where you kind of just make decisions. They seem
Yeah.
like I'm sure there's a very strong common thread to the reasons why you made the decisions that you made, but it's from the outside looking in, it's like, whoa, that's completely different.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, so I naturally fell into the technical side of fashion though. So I have my design degree, but I fell into technical design first. And I was at VS for 5 years. Aerie found me, they recruited me. They were starting their bra line. So
oh,
I went over
nice.
to Aerie. Victoria's Secret asked me to come back. And then from there, Nike sought me out and recruited me to reset their whole global bras. And then from there, I went to a startup because I'm like, hey, I've never done this, but I've always sat in entrepreneurial roles throughout my whole career on entrepreneurial teams. And yeah, and then I started the squad.
Yeah, it sounds like they were all sort of new projects, maybe except for Victoria's Secret, but the rest of the jobs gave you experience in like starting new projects.
Yeah, even Victoria's Secret. I was
Yeah.
on the team that started the swimwear for
Okay.
them, and it was a new business for them. So I sat in that role, and then on the innovation team, Victoria's Secret is super immersed in innovation, and you wouldn't know it. They don't talk about it,
Mm.
but there's so much technology that they're constantly looking at, and so that was really exciting. And so Victoria's Secret is part of the swim team, and I was part of the team that started VSX, which is their sports apparel.
Oh, this is so cool. I love
Yeah.
this. I love this. Um, okay, so that was one of your first jobs, VSS, Airy, and then Airy, and then you ended up being an entrepreneur. So how long? Oh man, I have so many. I'm like, I'm totally geeking out here. I have so many questions. I want to know about the innovation in Victoria's Secret. How much are they incorporating 3D design? And I want to know specifically about using technology, 3D technology for intimate apparel, because that's your background. And I want to know how you're applying that to the job that you're in now. So let's start, or to the work that you're doing now. So let's start with Victoria's Secret and the technology that they're applying to move the designs forward in a
Yeah.
sustainable way.
Yeah. I mean, VS was, I can't talk specifically about it, but VS, I can say was uh, very much pulled any sort of 3D and CAD into their development of products and fit. Way back 20 years ago when I first started with them.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so, yeah, yeah. So I don't know how much they use it nowadays. I'm sure it's more than most of us think. But yeah, they've always again been, ear to the ground, what's happening, how can we utilize this, how can we get better, how can we make it better for our customer. And I think that kind of for me, because I was so much in that culture and I saw so much, hearing how people, either talk good or bad about Victoria's Secret, the bad is like, God, I wish they would just say what they do and how much they do care about their consumer base. And, from the fit standpoint, because it was always like, God, when I was there, I probably fit over thousands of women. for from a fit standpoint, all to make sure that like we were making product that could improve their wearing experience. Um,
Yeah,
so,
you miss that in the marketing, hey? Like beautiful women in these
mm,
beautiful bodies wearing these beautiful designs, and you're like, that's not me. But like
right,
that's like that doesn't yeah, like it's unfortunate that we don't see as consumers like all the work that goes into creating these garments and fit's a huge part of it, which I'm just gaining experience
huge.
in this now. But if you're going to make a good product, and we talked about this with Larissa, like so
Mhm,
much work has to go into the development of the product, getting a good fit across the size
mhm,
range, because Larissa said it so well. Like, if you don't, then you make 1,000 products that suck and nobody wears
mhm,
them, and it's a waste of
mhm.
everybody's time, and it's like bad for the environment and
Yeah,
like the planning process, right? Like, it's
yeah.
that's such an important stage.
Yeah, I mean, anything that's close to body, I always say you cannot decouple design from fit. They go
Mm,
hand in hand. And, to Larissa's point, you can make a great, beautiful product. It's going to end up in the back of your drawer. You're never going to pull it out because your association with that product is discomfort. And we all inherently, as human beings, want to be comfortable, right? And so like
totally.
we focus constantly on fit, function, and performance of product. Like
Mm.
if a product it looks great in a static state, meaning you're not moving, it has to feel good and function properly in a dynamic state, right? Which is when you're moving around day to day, etc.
Yeah, exactly. That's an area where I find 3D design for me falls short. Like animation's super cool, but it
Mhm.
doesn't tell you much about how the product performs. But I want to get back to so in at Victoria's Secret, were you involved in the 3D design process at that point?
They didn't have it at that point. I was involved
Okay.
in other 3D projects, though.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Like
were
on your own
related.
or oh,
And now there's big projects that were happening that were, related to design and fit. But as far as like integration of like the newer software that's come on the market in, the past five, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, I don't know because I left back in
yeah,
2015.
right. Were they
Mhm.
using Optitex back then? Optitex maybe or
I can't say.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
I love to just ask questions that people can't
Yeah,
answer, huh?
yeah, no, no,
Okay.
it's cool.
Okay, let's circle around to the company
Mhm,
that you are running now,
mhm.
the squad. And so do most of your clients are they like close body wear clients? Like are those the types of products that you're developing, like into something close to intimate wear or active wear?
They're all different. We literally work on life-saving devices. So we will work on life-saving devices. We'll work on like custom tailored garments, and we work on athleisure bras, sports bras. Basically, what we like to focus on, one of our core values is we won't take a project on unless it is aligned with our values of making product that improve people's lives,
Mm,
right? In one way or another. And that could be a bra too, right? Because somebody who's wearing an incorrect size, that is going to impact their day and how they feel every day, right? It's going to sit in the back of their mind. So getting people in properly fitting product is paramount. Um, but we also focus on products that may have a lot of complexity. The more complex, the better, we say, right? Because like multiple substrates, multiple materials that have to be layered and have to move dynamically and have different moduluses and different tolerances. That's really where like the puzzling and the challenge comes through is like how you're going to make this product that is so complex look as simplified to the consumer as possible. So it's really close to body to everything else.
and do you find that you have to rely on your experience as in design and in intimate apparel specifically? Are you pulling from that experience to create the products that you create? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, it wasn't until SpaceX flew me out and had me interview for a role to literally build the blankets for the rocket ship so that they don't burn up in the atmosphere. Um, it wasn't until that moment where I was like, wow, my skill set in like metals and plastics and foams and like nanotechnology and like different materials, everything you could get your hands on from a tech perspective. I couldn't believe that that was so transferable. So I had no
Mm,
idea like how many markets I could go into. And then when you
yeah.
start exploring, you're just like, oh God, this is super cool. Like I can actually work in, integrated technology into soft good products. And, that's really where the industry's going as well. Right. And so that just opened a whole different landscape for me and for my team.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, I'm dying to know medical devices. So you have worked on
Mhm.
medical. Is there any that you can tell me about?
Um, No, but I can tell you that I can tell you that we work on therapy delivering devices. Therapy monitoring devices, which are, two different classifications, and we work on class one and class two medical devices. So we have experience with the FDA and like how do we, create the product, that development cycle, how do we document, how do we report all of that with our clients. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But they're devices that are worn, right, on the body, or they integrate to either an app or a piece of equipment that has to deliver so many amount of joules from a therapy standpoint to, resuscitate a patient, for example.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah.
these are they're garments that are being worn by people. And so you have to
Hmm.
figure out how to integrate like maybe like hard components and the soft components and make that be something comfortable that somebody can wear for a long period of time, along with like the um I want to say like the wires, like the mechanical components. So
Right.
that's cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
what I always really want to I always circle around to is
Yeah.
how we're incorporating. So I use Clo 3D. I use
Hmm.
I there's various like sources of avatars that I can get to create the garments, and I can create a pattern for a garment that can fit onto whatever like avatar that I've sourced, and it works pretty good. I can apply
Hmm.
different materials to that, and I can apply um different like prints and stuff, and I can come up with like a reasonable pattern for a reasonable fit. Can you tell me how you go beyond that, and what programs that you use that you can tell me about?
Yeah, yeah. So we again, we have our IP surrounding our process as well, but I can tell you that, our team works in multiple different CAD and creation softwares, and it's for different clients, right? So if somebody's working in browseware, we'll be like, okay, we'll pull browseware, So we work across like Optitex, browseware, Clo, the big three. Um, and plus a bunch of other programs. And we do a lot of body scanning. So we have over like 10,000 body scans in our database. And then we have handheld body scans that we can, scan our fit models or, scan whoever. And what that allows us to do is really create custom avatars based on body scans by taking it through a couple of different softwares. And we do that, with like rigging and stuff to, make sure that we can get them to move in virtual spaces. And we even work in gaming engines. So we can take from the very beginning development cycle of the avatar through to a consumer facing avatar um, through our pipeline. But for me, avatars, having custom avatars is primarily important from a development standpoint to make sure that you are designing for your consumer, more accurately. And it goes back to size and fit. And so many brands, they'll start off with a size and fit project, and then it kind of gets lost in the sauce or it gets, a stopping point, and then design continues. And that fit that was so closely connected to the original size and fit, right? Now starts to get watered down. And that's how we get largely that disconnect of what consumers see from a sizing standpoint or like sizing grids on websites to what the design of the product actually fits and feels like.
Okay, we kind of got into this offline, but
Hmm.
I asked you. So I have a body scan avatar. I was scanned with like a
Hmm.
handheld scanner, and I brought it
Hmm.
in, and I can open it in Blender. I think it's an FBX file or maybe an STL
Hmm.
file, and I can open that in Blender. Do you have any advice for somebody like just like somebody just playing around to translate that scanned avatar into a avatar that they can use for fitting?
Um, yeah, I mean, I personally would probably bring one, like we use, like I said, a couple different software in our pipeline. Maya seems to be a really great unlock. Um, and I know Blender, I believe Blender's free. It's a free
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Maya, you have to pay for the license. But that's been pretty big unlock as far as like how do we get our avatars over to, the different softwares that we use. One good thing that we know is that Clo and Unreal Engine are working together and they're building a bridge. And I don't know when that's coming out, but
Oh, that's
that's
interesting.
that's going to be huge for any company working in the space.
Yeah, I think Unreal Engine is usually used in like the movie and gaming industry right now
Yeah,
to take
that's right.
scans. I tried to get a scan done in Montreal and they were like, we do it for movies. It's like $1,000 just to like get one scan done. And he told me that the workflow was like normally from them to Unreal Engine to not sure, I don't remember the whole workflow,
Hmm.
but anyways, Unreal Engine was in there and that sounds really interesting that Chloe would
Yeah,
be working with them to figure something
yeah,
out because it's
yeah.
definitely the one of the biggest. So the three biggest factors I find to incorporating 3D into design is the first one is finding a good avatar
Hmm.
because that's like the whole reason why you draft a pattern is to fit somebody, right?
Hmm.
And
Right,
if you don't have like the right fit, then you're not even starting from the right place.
right.
The second
Exactly.
one is materials, finding the right materials to
Hmm.
apply to your products because it's the same thing. Like if you're sewing a garment and you're not using the right materials, you're not going to get the desired result.
Right.
And then I think probably the third is knowledge. Like just there's a lack of knowledge for how we can incorporate it.
Yeah, yeah, that and construction. I think so many, especially when we're working with like some of our medical clients or our wearable clients, like so many don't understand that that stack that you just mentioned, plus the construction of it, can really change the way things like fit and move. And so I think that plus knowledge are probably the four factors that you really need. And it's, 3D is great. It's awesome. I don't think it's ever going to replace the art that goes behind it or that knowledge base that you really need to understand, fit and pattern making. So I think I love it. It's a tool in our, toolbox, but it's never going to replace, our expert pattern makers, who use the tool. It's not going to replace their knowledge base.
Yeah, totally. The knowledge is the same. Like I know
Hmm.
how to use Clo, but I often reach out to people who are far more experienced than me to ask them about why like what's a little bit what do you see that's wrong, like something's not right about this pattern, like, and they can see it, like somebody with
Hmm.
like a lot of experience can be like, yeah, that curve, those that seam line just isn't matching up right, or
Right.
and it's yeah, it's really interesting because it's not, I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about the fear. There's a lot of
Hmm.
fear, or not. It's maybe not fear, but like like I find it mind blowing that we can use like this 3D technology to create our samples before we actually have to sew them up.
Hmm.
Um, but there's I've met a lot of people in the industry that aren't, that just haven't like incorporated this kind of
Hmm.
technology at all. A lot of people are still like drafting by hand because
Yeah.
that's how they know how to do it, and they're very good at what they do.
Hmm.
Do you see there being a lot of resistance to people wanting to?
I, you know, I think it all comes back to, our resistance as people to change. And I think it goes back to that comfort, that level of comfort, even in, oh, I know how to do it this way. And then we tend to put restrictions or guardrails on ourselves subconsciously, to not be able to move past into like incorporating new technology. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part is how much of an investment is it for a company to make in products, right? Because Chloe is great, and they have a great model as far as like offering individual licenses where it's accessible. But for big companies, their software cost is impactful to the budgets. And so I think it's really also like, what's the trade-off? Like, I can get this done this much quicker because this is how I know how to build it, versus, oh, I'm going to have to invest time and effort into learning this new technology, and how does it actually get incorporated in the product life cycle? And then do we actually get an ROI from it? Right. So I think it's
Yeah.
kind of both of those things.
Yeah. And
Um,
the bigger the company is, the
mhm.
bigger the consequences to making a bad decision in that regard.
Yeah, 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 but I don't think it's going away.
Mm.
Right. I think it's just everybody's still trying to figure out what's the proper use. How does it make sense for us as a brand? How much do we want to invest in it? How much are we going to upskill our teams in it? Yeah. And because to your point, we'll bring on like interns and things like that. And we can tell, somebody who drafts a pattern in Clo, they're like, oh, it looks really great. Aesthetically, yes. But then you start to look at it from a pattern making standpoint, you're like, that's not correct. That's not actually going to work in bulk production, right? And it is that you do have to have that art and that knowledge of how to create patterns. And I think that's the other thing is, some companies are looking at it like purely from an aesthetic standpoint. How can we make this visually appealing and interesting to internally tell the story within the brand, sell the vision, right, versus actually utilizing it as a tool to make patterns for bulk.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two sides of it. And I
Mhm.
found, well, maybe it's because I'm more interested in it, but the two sides are using it for marketing, make a beautiful 3D garment, and you apply
Mhm.
all the right lighting and you apply all the right camera filters, and like that's a product that it's your customer facing product. And then you
Mhm.
also have like the product development side of it, where you're still
Mhm.
creating a 3D sample to go along with the product that you're creating, but you're more concerned with how the pattern looks in the pattern drafting
Mhm.
side, and just like whether seams are in the right place. Like Clo lets you cheat. So like if you have seam
Right.
lines that don't actually match up, Clo will match them up for you. They'll ease in the fabric for you and
Yeah.
like let things work. And that's where like knowledge of pattern drafting has to plays into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, okay. I had some questions written down here.
Yeah.
So okay, so I have written down, what does the future of product development look like, and how does it compare to the current process?
Yeah, I mean, I think fashion design and the fashion industry as it is, I don't think this is new information, that it's relatively hard to get new technology adopted, right? For some reason, us as an industry, we tend to be a little bit hesitant on incorporating new technology. But I think
Yeah, I've
that's,
heard this is true
again,
for like even when Illustrator started becoming
oh
mainstream,
yeah,
or even like when digital drafting in the 80s, like with Gerber started becoming mainstream, there was a lot of resistance.
a lot of yes, yes, a lot of hesitation.
Yeah.
But I think, that might just be the nature of, the left and right brain thinkers in the industry.
Mm.
And again, that balance of, I think, again, it goes back to industrial design, and then soft good design is very different. Industrial design, you can work in those CAD programs a little bit easier than in soft good design, where you do have all of those different moduluses and tolerances and everything else you have to take into consideration, and then the layering of those materials. And I think is from a process standpoint, it sounds relatively easy and the same, but as you know, when you start working in it, there's a whole nother complexity that's added in. And so I think that's probably a part of the hesitation of really that art and that knowledge and that incorporation, and how do we use 3D tools. But I do think that that's where the future is. And I think one of so much of what we can't talk about for our clients, we can talk about one client, which is Pheonix Active, where we've actually can point to it now and be like, this is how you can use technology from the A to Z, right? This is how you create avatars
Oh, I love it.
um, from body scans, and then they're actually using the avatars consumer facing, and they have a whole new approach on how they are approaching fit for the consumer. And so I think that's probably one that we would point to is like, yeah, that brand is doing it right. It's incorporating the technology, the art, and the science of design and fit. Um, and I think a lot more brands are going to be following suit.
Absolutely. It makes so much sense. It makes so
Hmm.
much sense to start with like an avatar that is representative of a real human body.
Hmm.
Um, so so did you create their avatars for them?
We did. Yeah. Yeah. And the one way that we did it is there's so many brands that are trying to go after size and fit, and they're trying to go after it from, photo capture, which requires the consumer to get off the couch, where they're likely shopping, stand up, find a blank wall, change, and then take a photo capture and submit it to a brand, and you're like, I don't know where this photo is going.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. A lot of
Eventually,
distrust there for sure. Yeah.
a lot of distress. And so that also goes into land of legal. It's the privacy law issues, right, that
Mhm.
start to surround that. So that starts to become a barrier of entry. So that first process is a barrier of entry, but then also the privacy law issues is a barrier for the brand. What we did is we did massive data aggregation and analysis and a compilation of different body scans, creating each avatar so that we're not relying on just one body. We're not relying on one person. So the privacy laws don't apply since they're an aggregation of data for each avatar.
Okay, that's super interesting. So, to get like an avatar for Phoenix Active, then, for example, you took
Mhm.
to get, did you okay, I'm guessing that you made a range of avatars for them so that they could try on different sizes.
So the avatars themselves, like I said, we did an aggregation of data. So we built our own algorithms on like how are these avatars getting classified, so that we can create the different sizes of avatars in their size range. And so
This is right up my
um,
alley. This is so
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. They're launching in a couple weeks. I know they have their splash page up at shopphoenixactive.com, but they're launching their full site in a couple weeks, and yeah, you can actually shop with the avatars.
I
It's
feel like
pretty
it
cool.
creates so much trust. Like I know that this company is using human bot, like I mean, I guess every like I there was Alvanon did this webinar the other day, and they talked about
Hmm.
how they've been collecting information on human bodies for like for a long time as well, since like the maybe
Hmm.
early 2000s, I want to say.
Hmm.
And so the fact that like we're the old charts, like those old ASTM charts that we used to get, that data is so old. It's from like the
Yeah.
80s. Like it's so outdated, but we've been so slow to compile and share that information that that's what we've been working on. So a lot of brands are behind on their sizing system because they're just
That's
like
right.
where like it's very hard to access data on human body sizing. Alvanon's like one source that you can go to. Figure Forms
Hmm.
is another one that I've come across that would be available to somebody like me as a small freelancer. Um, so this is amazing. I feel like it's so amazing for the industry because going back to what we said at the beginning, getting the fit right is the most important factor to creating a
Hmm.
garment that consumers are going to value. Like garments that will last a long time that people are going to care about. And that's amazing that you are capable, your company is capable of doing that, and you have like all this information on real people, real body scans. Like they're not measurements
Mhm.
taken with a measuring tape that's like subject to like human error and like, copying it down. Um,
Right.
I'm just totally like
Yeah.
fangirling over here. That's really cool. Like I feel like our products are getting better. I feel like this is
Mhm.
going to make us have less wastage across the industry. Like not so we're going to actually create products that are better, but also in the creation of our products by incorporating digital processes, we're
Mhm.
eliminating so many samples in the in
Yes.
between.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest, pain point. And I think for anybody who's worked in the industry a long time is you go into these sample rooms where you just have archives and archives of samples, and you can go in sample making anywhere from like, 3 to 9 to 12 if you're working in bras of prototypes just in one size. And then, we don't fit just in one bra size. So we fit in multiple sizes across the bra size range. And then that just adds up. And just seeing that waste, I think is probably compelled a lot of people that have, seen that and care about sustainability to incorporate 3D in the processes.
Yeah, I feel really privileged. I feel like the place that I'm stepping into this industry, like I can see it. I can see the old processes that still
Yeah.
exist, and I can see the potential for where we're going to go. And I'm like super interested in seeing what's going to happen in 10 years. We're going to look back to this point and we're going to be like, okay, that's like that was the crossroads, and that's when things like I don't know if we reached the tipping point yet where
Mhm.
like the change is really happening, but I mean there's a lot of discussion around it.
Yeah, yeah, and you have, some big brands that are doing it very well, and they are really investing in training and everything to get their teams onboarded. And what's going to happen so many times in the industry, as it does already, is those people leave and they take their knowledge to other companies, and then I think that's going to be another trickle effect of like how other companies are able to onboard and access the technology and incorporate it into their processes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. As you were saying that, I was thinking about how you went from Victoria's Secret and then not Adore Me, what was
Oh, Aerie.
Aerie, and then Nike as well. Were you like bringing your knowledge with you across the
I mean, I don't like you can't remove your
yeah,
brain,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like
I
you're
don't mean where you like stealing ideas from one and applying
yeah,
to the other, but like
yeah,
yeah, like you gain and develop experience in one place. Yeah, you're
yeah.
human. That thread is going to come with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like there's so much knowledge, that you learn in any role that I think you just normally start to stack one on top of the other as you progress in your career. And I think that's true of any function.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
interested in going back to Nike. So Nike is
Yeah.
one of the brands that are out there that are huge in 3D. Like you can go on their websites and they are using 3D products for their customer facing products. And
Hmm.
even like in their ads and stuff, you can see a lot of
Yeah.
3D processes at Nike. Were you involved with any of those?
I cannot say.
Okay. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to questions that
No,
like you're
no,
not.
no. It's challenging, right? It's challenging because like in every role I've had such tight NDAs with every
Mm,
company
yeah.
and they don't have an expiration date. So
Okay.
just because of my involvement in innovation and the projects I was involved
Mm,
in, there's no expiration. But it's also tough with, the squad. We've been in business for 5 years. We worked on some really, really cool projects with some like brands that are so recognizable to so many consumers. And we can't talk about it because we're
yeah.
like we're like the secret team, we're like the secret agent that helps these companies and they don't want their competitors to know, right?
Mm,
That
yeah.
we work on different projects with them.
Yeah.
So
Fair
it
enough.
just makes it tough when, we're courting a new client. They're like, "Oh, what have you worked on?" And we're like, "Yeah, so we can't talk about that." So we're lucky to finally have a brand like Pheonix Active where we're really like, okay, they're allowing us to, to shout from the rooftops, like this is what you can do with
Yeah.
3D technology.
Right on. Yeah, I did come across them in Instagram, I think fairly
Mhm.
recent, but I haven't had a chance to really dive into them. They will be linked in the show notes for sure. I'm going to be checking them out after we're done talking here.
Cool. Cool. Well, I hope
Um,
by the time that this goes live that the website is live as well.
okay.
That'd be pretty cool for them.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Okay. Okay, let's see if you can answer this one. What are
Okay.
some products that you've worked on that you feel have contributed value to the world?
Um,
I feel like
other
Phoenix is one of them already. We've talked about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think obviously the medical products. So, for starting in bras, right? You have to deal with the counterbalancing of the breast tissue, um, especially for, larger breasted women. Um, the degree of impact to their lives as far as like shoulder pain, back pain, breast soreness, all of that, um, that's huge. And, that I just don't think that men particularly understand, the levels of pain and discomfort that somebody can go through when having to shop and wear a bra. There's some women that can opt out of wearing a bra because of their size, and some women who just can't. And those women, I mean, all the products that I've created in the scope of bras, I think have positively impacted women's lives. I have, you know, I don't know how many patents and counting, probably 12 or 15 at this point, but there's a few that, I did at Victoria's Secret that I think have really impacted people's lives in a positive way in the sports bra area, especially. And that's
Mm.
because, when you're already having a challenge of finding a bra, and then now you're having to look for a sports bra, and the dynamic movement of the breast tissue in a high impact state that can either stop your workout or help you accelerate through it.
Oh my
So
God, tell me about it.
yeah, I'm a 34 double D, and it is, yeah, I've definitely had that moment of like I have to stop my run. This isn't supporting me, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
Um,
Tell me about it. Yeah. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that. It's beautiful. And you're speaking like straight, you're speaking right to me here because that's been like
yeah.
my whole life. Like I developed early. I'm a 32G. Like
Hmm.
I ran a lot when I was younger. And like from so early on in my life experience, like I started seeing this part of my body, like my breast. Like there's nothing you can do about it. It's part of your body. It's part of who you are. Like as this source of like just annoyance. You know what I mean? Like my body
Yeah,
shouldn't annoy me. I should be able to figure out how I can make it work in the world that I live in. And so yeah, having
right.
like having a good bra is game changing. Like it's life
Yes.
changing having a good bra. And when you're a size that's not the standard and it's
Hmm.
very hard to find a product like that, it's just it makes your life so much more difficult.
Yeah, it
So
does. It
yes,
does.
absolutely you're making lives better. Yeah, that's and I
Yeah.
love that. It's kind of like you don't realize it. It's such a beautiful answer, but we don't think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten cards and emails for the course of my career when I've, fit women in bras and, or recommended different bras to them, and, just how much of a game changer and life changing it was for them. And it was changing one piece of apparel that, it's has to be beautifully designed, but it has to be supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, you cannot decouple those two things. And I just want to segue to sizing really quick, because bra sizing, we all know 70% of women still are wearing the wrong bra size. It's challenging to know which bra size to wear because we also fluctuate, or one breast can be larger than the other, and can be, minimal to a lot. Um, and that the sizing of bras also really impacts how a consumer understands a brand. And because sizing is so different from brand to brand because it is part of their IP. I think that adds on to the challenge of finding the right bra size, and the
Mm.
right support. And so much of bra engineering, most brands go after like the small, mid-sized cups, like your traditional like 32C to 38D, because those are easy. To your point, it's getting up to the G's, the H's, all of those different sizes. That's where the real art and science come together. And why I don't think a lot of brands do it well, because that expertise is not easily garnered.
That's exactly what I was thinking as you were
Hmm.
talking. Like to get those the outlier sizes,
Hmm.
that skill, like it's something that I've been working on for about 5 years now, just trying to like find the knowledge,
Hmm.
just like
Yeah.
sources of how that is done. It's really hard. Like it's like
Hmm.
it's not shared. There's a handful books out there. There's a really beautiful home sewing community, bra sewing community, where a lot of knowledge is shared, but it's
That's
shared
cool.
amongst us, which is really
Yeah.
cool. Like, yeah, it's shared
Yeah.
amongst us, but it's very hard to source anything that is not, anything from a brand or anything from um like a more established, like somebody who has a lot of research, who has access to like 10,000 avatars that they can measure and see exactly like what is the shape of this breast. You can get the volume of a breast. Like that's not
Yeah.
something that we could really do before, you know what I mean, with
Hmm.
like measuring, but with an avatar you can actually get what the volume of that breast is and figure out how to best support it. So I wish I could like
Hmm.
just like pull back the curtains one day when some of your products come out, maybe we'll be able to talk
Yeah.
about more about the
Yeah.
development of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, again, for Phoenix Active, we built not only all their avatars, but also all their product. And we used again our material engineering, our size and fit engineering, and then our knowledge about bras. And we developed their bras to expand and contract 3 different cup sizes and 2 band sizes. So we're getting around one very big variable, and that's what bra size am I?
Yeah. And like what bra size am I on my period and what bra size
Right.
am I like in the middle of the month? Totally. And that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables. Like your body can
Hmm.
change a lot
Yes.
in one month. Can we talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the development process? Like what does it look like
Sure.
when a company like Phoenix Active comes to you and says like, here's my idea.
Hmm.
Like what's the process for you from like that point to the end point when you have products on the shelf?
Yeah. Gosh, we've literally worked from like a cupcake wrapper before with brands. We've literally had brands come to us and be like,
This is
I
my
want to
idea.
make this. And we've worked magic. But yeah, so a lot of times brands will come with an idea or a concept, and it may be, rough sketch. Most of the time it's a rough sketch or, an idea of like, I want to go into this space. And we bring together a squad, a team. We work in small teams so that it is really accessible for our clients. And then also, so the teams are super focused on each project. And from there, we'll build, depending on the complexity, if we have to bring a data scientist in, we'll bring them in onto the project. Um, so it depends if we're working from like, are we bringing in data that we have to aggregate, analyze, and then incorporate into a project. So if we're working from that standpoint, we work from, creating those processes, creating, all the procedures that need to go into that data analysis. And then from there, we're also looking at the designs or the types of products that the brand wants to work with. And so we'll bring in, those designs, and we look at size and fit from a body standpoint and then from a garment standpoint simultaneously, right? So they're kind of running together in line, because obviously while they're connected, they have different properties that we have to include from a material and construction and garment, job to be done standpoint. So we'll work from that in virtual. And then once we get through a couple of different processes in virtual and, analyzing the fit and the patterns, then we'll go ahead and send it over to our sample room and we'll start doing prototypes. Um, Once we do that, we like to work up through like to a DFM standpoint, design for manufacturing, in which we'll do a handoff to one of our vendor partners so that we can still work through the size and fit, work through, so we have different size and fit, right? We have the user or the fittings, and then we have a small user test or like jump size set, et cetera. And then we like to do the wear test with our manufacturers. And that's because the handling is always going to be different from a sample room to an actual garment factory. So that saves our clients, time and money on that standpoint. And then, then they go into manufacturing.
And can you there's two things I want to ask about. One is the vendors and how much they are incorporating 3D processes into the development with you. Like how much do you work with them in 3D? But also I want to take a step back from that and I want to ask about how far you can get in 3D. Do you get pretty close to a sample? Do you get pretty close to a sample that's going to be manufactured? Like how much does it save compared to the traditional process of just using 3D a little bit or not using 3D at all?
Yeah, so we get pretty darn close as far as if you take an example of maybe it takes a brand new style that's being created, six prototypes, before you're getting to your final fit. We can get it down to like 1 to 3. So we're
Mm,
cutting the development process nearly in half already. And that's on new products. On product that is being built from like blocks, um, then that block creation is probably that process as well. It's like a little bit longer of a process. Once you have your blocks in place, though, we can turn it around in like 1 to 2 prototypes easy.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
cuts
That's super
down
cool.
greatly. And
Yeah.
then for our manufacturing partners, it goes back into, has their leadership decided the ROI was, worth it? And so some of them work in 3D and we have those partners that, we can send um, like little videos of avatars and a size and fit that we have with the client. And then we have others where it's just sending, over the DXF files or, things like that. But yeah,
For our
it definitely
listeners,
depends. Mhm.
for our listeners, DFX files are sort of like the standard that almost any program can open. The standard pattern file that you can pretty much open in any software.
Yeah. 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 And there's plugins sometimes that, if you're working in one software and then, the vendor's working in a different one, there's plugins that will have to convert the file sometimes just because of the different nuances of each software. But yeah, they're pretty universal.
Okay, yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, that makes sense that there would be plugins
Yeah.
just in case like the file that you're working with won't necessarily work. I've never
Yeah.
had to look into that. Good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what kinds of software do you find these vendors using? Is there one that's more common than others?
Um, I think it goes back to again the investment. So I know that some companies are still using Gerber. Um, yeah, I'd have to say that's probably the one that we hear a lot of manufacturers still using. I know that the ones that the large brands work with, they've definitely invested in like Clo and Browseware and all of those so that they can be compatible with their consumer.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, Clo, Browseware, and Optitex are sort of the three big
Hmm.
ones, and then Gerber
Hmm.
is like the kind of the industry standard. So
Hmm.
that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
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 I want to circle back around to your creativity. So you got into
Mhm.
drawing. So when you were in high
Mhm.
school, you was that always something that you loved doing?
Yeah, it was definitely a release, I would say. You kind of go into your own world and I'm an introvert, extrovert, so I think that was kind of the balance for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I'm
yeah.
the same. I would call I like that. I like that description. Yeah, I don't mind being extroverted, but
Yeah.
I need time to unwind from it as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I think drawing for me was always that outlet. And again, I think being wanting to go into a field of science really has led me to probably invest in emerging technologies and incorporate them into processes just because of my natural curiosity. And the other thing is I built the company over 5 years ago now with a remote team. And that was always the intent that people should be able to um, use the planet like their playground, live where they want to live, and investing in technology and software was a way to do it, right? So that we didn't have to all be in one office in one location that maybe some of us didn't want to live in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. And then access to talent, right? Like you're not limited
Absolutely.
to your local geography and like who's
Yeah,
around. Where are you actually? What city are you in?
I'm in Portland, Oregon right
Okay, I
now.
thought so. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
is there a lot of like techies around in Portland, Oregon? It's close to San Fran, I think. So
It's close to, yeah, and you have like the big, sneaker companies here as well. I think that they've been trying to make Portland another destination as a tech hub. I think it's been slow growth.
okay.
I know Salesforce has a satellite office here, but they kind of leapfrogged us and went up to Seattle and as
Okay.
well
Yeah.
from SF. So I think there's some here.
Okay.
We have satellite offices from like Microsoft and Google,
Okay.
but yeah.
But the benefits to a remote team is that you're not limited to local
Yeah.
talent. So that's cool. Are you
Yeah.
guys still all remote or how does that
We
work?
are all still remote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have my project manager that comes here and, we work side by side on a few days a week. But other than that, everybody else is remote all
That's
around the
incredible.
country.
That's incredible. And you've always been a fully
Always.
remote team.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. And then
Do you
COVID
guys
caught up.
yeah, yeah, and you're like, that's okay. We can still function. Do you guys
Yeah.
ever meet up? Is there ever like team meetings?
Yeah, yeah. We'll plan our team meetings usually around when we have clients that fly in, for certain things. Part
Okay.
of, different, maybe we have like a big fit week and
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of models come in and
Okay.
they'll fly in for that. And yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah,
That's super interesting.
yeah.
I have written down what kinds of software do you use, but I think you're pretty much all proprietary. Do you guys, is it developed? Do you have developers or are you working with software that is only accessible to, or
Yeah,
you
it's a
can't say?
combination. It's
Okay.
it's a it's a combination. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I don't have any. I think I'm at the end of my list, and we're closing in an hour here. So, I
Mhm.
usually end the podcast with what is your favorite part of, let's say being CEO of the squad, and your least favorite part.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. My favorite part is seeing how the teams have truly come together over the years and formed to turn out truly incredible products, where we can say, we're literally changing people's lives through product, right? Our small, very small, I'm lost for words, but to humanity, right? Our small contribution to humanity.
Mm, yeah.
And I think my worst part of being a CEO is my brain never turns off. I am
Mm.
I'm always, and my team, they know this, and they'll often ask, like, did you sleep? I don't, I have trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to I'm always trying to do the right thing for our clients, for our employees, for our teams, and
Mm.
that weighs heavy on me. Um,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. As a freelancer, even I was saying this just to somebody the other day, you just never turn off. Like
so
your business is there's so much in it and you care about it so much. And the reason why you're doing it is because it matters to you. And so it's very hard. It's like but it's not just not turning off. There's always ideas like that are coming through and you got to decide which ones you're going to pursue and which ones you're not. And
mhm,
I definitely
mhm.
get it. And then I imagine for you, you have probably a million projects always on the go. And so those ideas are probably applying those little thoughts, or can be applied. Like you're brushing your teeth one day and you're thinking about something comes to mind on how something can be applied. I can see that. And then
Yeah.
and then to your other point, for um I'm trying to say the words exactly. Your small contribution to humanity.
Mhm,
I follow Seth Godin,
mhm,
who gives a lot of advice. There's lots of advice that speaks to me, and one thing he often talks about is meaningful specifics.
mm,
So it's how you're contributing to the world. What really matters are the things, the meaningful things that are specific that you're doing. It's not like the big grand like philosophies on how we should live, but like the those little he says like you're a little drop in a gigantic bucket and that's enough. And it's
yeah,
like it really resonates with me because that's exactly what it is. Like that's 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 all we are living on this planet, like a little speck of
yeah,
dust, right? So all you
yeah,
can do is like try to contribute in a way that's meaningful. So thank you
yeah.
for doing what you do.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And yeah, going back to being an entrepreneur, right? It's my accountant. She's this badass accountant, short, and she's just like she just packs a punch. She's so cool. And she put it the best way I think I've ever heard it. She said, your business is a baby, and you have to feed the baby every day,
Yeah.
and you have to nourish it, and you have to think about how is its life going to continue, and how are you going to foster that?
Yeah.
And I just was like, that's so simple and so brilliant. And yeah, so feeding the baby every day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I could even like take that further because as that baby grows, the needs of that baby grows and like
And they
as it
change.
matures, yeah, exactly. Like you have to like be constantly like paying attention to what the needs are. So I love it. I
Yeah,
love this
yeah,
analogy.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really love
Thank
this
you,
conversation.
Trudy. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Take care. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks. You too.